everybody. My name is Cristiane, and I'm an exercise physiologist with Simply Health Solutions. Today, I'm going to be talking about active aging and a very specific exercise that I recommend for pretty much every senior client that I have, just because it is so important. And that exercise is known as a sit to stand. So today, I'm going to be talking about what is a sit to stand, how it helps, some safety concerns just to keep in mind, and some modifications if it's either too easy or too hard. Now, before I get started about talking about this specific exercise, if you are new to exercising in general, and this is kind of all new to you, be sure to check out the online physical activity readiness questionnaire, known as the PAR-Q. Very, very heavily used within the exercise therapy world. And it is just a standardized questionnaire that can let you know kind of where your health is right now and whether or not you should be seeking maybe checking in with your doctor and seeing if you should check in with them before starting an exercise program. So what is a sit to stand? It's also known as a squat. We basically use them interchangeable. Kind of depends on, usually in my experience, it's who you're talking to. So if you're talking to personal trainers or exercise therapists that work with usually younger individuals or in very good shape individuals, they'll use the word squat. Sit to stand is usually more of a rehab kind of word or like a seniors fitness word. Again, basically it's the same idea, but it really focuses basically on this idea of getting out of a chair and focusing on your ability to get out of a chair. Sounds simple enough, but it actually does require a lot of different lower body muscles and your core. And depending on how you do it, what modifications you do, there's other muscles that even come into play as well. So I do like it for even just the fact that it actually targets a whole bunch of muscles rather than, let's say, there are other exercises out there that are very, very targeted to maybe one particular group of muscles. The sit to stand kind of does a little bit of everything, which is one of the reasons why I really like it. However, I say this to pretty much every seniors fitness client I have, and it's if you only complete one exercise on a regular basis, please let it be this one. It is so, so important to your everyday life. We don't think about it until we lose the ability to do it. And it's this idea of, can you get out of a chair relatively easily? So if you're out to dinner or if you're eating at home or just trying to get out of your couch, do you have difficulty doing that? Do you have difficulty? Do you require the use of your arms? Do you require swinging? Do you require assistance from somebody else to kind of help you up? That is going to be something that is going to be become very important and becomes very apparent when we can no longer do that. But also getting out of a car, especially if you've got a car that's really low to the ground. I actually had a family member who sold his car because it was too low to the ground and he could no longer get out of the vehicle. And I actually know a few seniors who actually purposely purchase vehicles that are very high off the ground because it's easier to get in and out of. But also using the bathroom. Again, this is one of those things where we don't realize how important this exercise is until we can't do it anymore. The idea of going to the bathroom, using the toilet, sitting down, and then trying to get back up can actually be surprisingly difficult for a lot of people. And also just getting up from bed. Getting up from bed, especially if you've got a really, really soft mattress, that can provide an extra challenge because when you try to put your hands down on the mattress to try to lift you up, because if your mattress is really soft, your hands just kind of sink into it, and then it just makes it really hard to get out of. So one of the reasons why this exercise or this movement kind of like starts disappearing a little bit and we don't even notice that we're starting to lose this ability, partially because our bodies figure out ways to cheat. So it's this idea of at first you're having a little bit of difficulty, so you're really using your arms. Eventually you're really swinging, so you're really trying to use momentum to get yourself up. Eventually, maybe you're using your walker, and at some point, maybe you start asking, people around you, "Hey, can you give me a hand to try to get up?" And then just slowly, we start realizing that, hey, like we're starting to lose this ability, and all of a sudden, uh, people one day feel like all of a sudden they lost the ability, but really, we've been losing it over time. And the other thing, as somebody who has worked as a coordinator within a long term care facility, it's a huge, huge factor whether or not you can get out of a chair in determining how much assistance you need. It's it's not the full deciding factor, but when we talk about in rehab, when we talk about a transfer status, one of the things we're thinking about is this exact ability. So, how much assistance do you need? So, back when I worked in long term care, we thought about, is this person independent? Are they a one person assistance, which means they only need very moderate, they just need somebody there to kind of help them up a little bit? Are they a two-person assistance, which means they need two people to help them get out of a chair or get out of bed? Or are they different places call this different things, but we used to call them a total mechanical lift, which means this person requires a machine, very very specialized machinery to help them get in and out of a chair, of a couch, of bed, kind of whatever it is they're working with. So again, this exercise is actually extremely important, and not even just for long-term care facilities. But if, let's say, if you ever needed assistance at home, again, this comes into play whether or not you can do this task. And a lot of my clients, this is actually a huge, huge thing we're working on, is trying to get this person being able to get up from a chair without using their arms, without swinging, being able to do this independently. And the other caveat is being able to do it repeatedly. So it's not just doing it the one time and then call it quits, but can you do it a few times in a row? Now, a few safety concerns that I always like to talk about. First off, as I already mentioned, do check with your doctor or an exercise professional before starting any kind of new exercise program. You always want to make sure that there's nothing kind of lurking, anything kind of in your medical history that might not doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do this exercise, but it might just be some things to keep in mind. One thing, ensure you have a chair behind you. And what I always try to make sure that chair is right up against either a counter or a wall. Because more than once, I have seen people get out of a chair, the chair starts to slide away from them, and then they lose their balance, and then they fall down. So it's that idea of you always have the chair right up against a wall, especially as you're practicing. Or if you're on a couch, you can use a couch as well, because that's going to be relatively sturdy. But do keep in mind, if you have a couch like mine that is very low to the ground, even I sometimes have trouble getting out of my own couch because it is so low to the ground. So again, trying to keep that in mind as well. The other thing is make sure you're taking deep breaths, because if you exercise, this exercise or pretty much anything else, if you're holding your breath, that generally tends to increase your blood pressure. So you do want to make sure that you are taking nice deep breaths. Now, it's going to depend how vital this becomes, depending on, again, your medical history. So if you've got very severe heart issues, high blood pressure, or if you've got a lung condition. So if you've got COPD or some other type of lung condition, you do want to, again, keep in mind that breathing going to become very important, especially when I often talked about this in my lung disease exercise program, where this idea of as the first few, you might feel actually pretty good and you might feel fine. And it's only after a couple that it really starts to hit you. And that's just kind of how our bodies work. We can usually do about, I think it's about 30 seconds to a minute, um, technically without oxygen. But what that means is your body's building up what we call an oxygen debt. And so you feel pretty good for the first like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then suddenly you're hit with this oxygen deprivation. And then that's when people, start gasping for air. So again, you want to make sure that you're kind of taking your time and taking deep breaths throughout the workout. Other thing is be mindful of recent surgeries. So if you've got any sort of healing scars, healing wounds, again, you just want to be mindful of it, be careful of it. Another thing to keep in mind is if you've got like an ostomy bag, again, talk with a exercise professional to just kind of keep those little things in mind and thinking about how to modify your exercises. The other thing that I often notice is keep your toes and your knees pointing in the same direction. So, what I mean by that is making sure that as you're trying to stand up, your knees don't buckle inwards towards each other. Very, very common. And it's one thing that I really try to pinpoint in the clients I work with. Um, just because especially it's the biomechanics of it, it's just your knees are not going to be happy if you're doing that repeatedly. It's not about the fact that you've done it once or twice. It's the fact if you're doing it multiple times a day, yeah, your knees are not going to be happy. Your hips aren't going to be happy. Kind of your whole lower body is not really going to be super happy. So if we can just work on keeping those nice and lined up, everything's going to be a little bit happier. So when it comes to modifications, there are various ways you can make this easier or harder, just depending on your current physical activity levels, your current abilities, your current strength, if you've got any medical conditions. So just keep that in mind. But on the easier side of things, what you could do is have a support. That could be something like a walker, that could be a counter, that could be another chair, can be a bunch of different things. Or, if somebody's really, really frail, maybe they have another person help them get up and down. Especially in my world of rehab, maybe if somebody just had a recent stroke, right? So they're going to need that assistance, or if they've got another medical condition. So again, they might need that additional support at the beginning. But as you get better, there's different ways you can actually make it harder. And one of the ways I like to do that is by just simply changing your foot position. So, this idea of instead of having your feet parallel to each other, you would have one foot, so your stronger leg, slightly ahead of the other. Doesn't even have to be my much, but by putting it slightly forward, it means that the weaker leg, or the leg closer to you, is going to have to work harder. So, especially with exercises like this, so like I said, to stand or any exercise where you're using both legs or both arms at the same time, you want to keep in mind that usually the stronger side will take over and will do majority of the work. So, if you've got really bad arthritis in one particular joint, if you've had a hip or knee replacement, if you've had a stroke, if you're like me and I have a herniated disc with some sciatica, that I feel, which even I've noticed in myself, is I have a tendency to favor one side over the other. So this is kind of one way that you can try to work on that weaker side and make sure that we are making sure that both sides are actually staying strong. And then if it's starting to get really easy, then add a weight. And you don't have to go to fancy exercise stores. You don't have to buy expensive weights. You could go to like even the dollar store has some free weights there. You can go to like a Shoppers Drug Mart. You can go to a bunch of different places, Walmart, Winners, Marshalls, a lot of these places have, little free weights. Um, but honestly, you don't even have to do that. You can take a look around your house. Is there anything in your home that you could just kind of hold on to? Um, it could be a couple of water bottles. It could be, um, different parts of the country. You could use a carton of milk. You could use different cans of soup. There's so many things. So, or even like a bottle of like fabric softener, fabric detergent, or something like that. Or if you're like me, fan of Costco, whatever giant box you just recently purchased. So it's just anything. You can hold on to anything, and it just adds a little bit of weight, makes it a little bit harder. Do you make sure though that you are getting in the proper mechanics, that you're not kind of using momentum, that you are not using your arms, that you're doing the exercise properly before you kind of progress to something a little harder? Because I don't want you to be working harder while still not having the form correct and still kind of doing things to make it a little bit easier on you. You do want to keep that in mind as well. But if you're really getting a good hang of it, this could be another way that you can work on it. And at the end of the day, developing your strength, whether it's through set to stands or the hundreds of different exercises that are out there, developing your strength can help keep your independence. And at the end of the day, reduce your risk of falls. Helps improve your balance. The other thing is it also helps strengthen your bones. For those who have osteoporosis, for those who are worried about things like hip fractures, bone fractures, to your wrist, your ribs, your legs, exercising is going to be one of the ways that you can make your bones stronger. So that even if you have a fall, you're less likely to actually experience a fracture. And if you do want additional support, so if you have like specific questions, you want to think about your current medical history, thinking about maybe who you should look into or who to reach out to, feel free to contact me and email me, and we can set up a virtual appointment. Either you and I can work together virtually, or depending on where you live, I might be able to point you in the right direction of a couple of people I know, or a couple of organizations that I know of that might be able to help. But feel free to contact me, and then we can kind of figure things out from there. Because I work with mainly seniors. Majority of what I do right now is home health. So I work with people who are a little bit more on the frail side, and working on getting them back out in the community, back out into community centers, local gyms. I've had some clients that have made really, really great progress. So, like, it's really, really encouraging to see that. Like I said, feel free. And you can also email me. My slides, I do often post on my website. So, feel free to check out my website, and I do record my lectures on YouTube, so feel free to check that out. If you can, give this video a like, please subscribe, and feel free to share it with your friends to try to get motivated and join this physical activity journey, because it is always better to do it with friends and have other friends in your life cheering you on and helping you guys stay active together. Thanks for joining, and I will see you next time.